Welcome back to Open Line, everyone. We are talking about the Metro Police Department. We have with us the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, James Smallwood. And that answers, as we stream this live on Facebook, Kelly DeMint's question. She asked, who were we talking to? Or Kathy Kemp asked that. So it's the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, James Smallwood. Thank you again for being here.
Absolutely.
We're streaming this live on our Facebook page, so you can ask a question there. We also have several callers. So let's just go straight to the phones. Let's go to Ann. Hello, Ann. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I have two questions. And the first one's for Channel 5. You got the FOP on, so my question for you is, when will you have someone from Gideon's Army or from CON or Community Oversight Now on? And then my question for Mr. Smallwood is, there were numerous officers who came out in support for the passing of Amendment 1 and who started being harassed by their fellow peers, and the harassment continued, and the harassment was reported to their superiors. So my question to Smallwood would be, what is he doing to protect these officers who are continuing to be harassed? One lawsuit's been filed. So my question to Channel 5 is, when will a representative for community oversight be on? And Smallwood, what are you doing to protect your officers from your officers?
All right, thank you. And that's a fair question for Channel 5. We've had community oversight on in the past, but we need to have them on again, certainly as this process moves forward, and we will. This is a show where often we have one side and they get to present their side, then we have the other side, and we don't have people kind of debating or yelling at each other. But your question is appropriate, and we will have somebody representing I guess the other side on, I promise, and I appreciate your question. And now you also hear Ann asking that other question.
Sure. So I think what Ann is referring to is some comments that are made on social media from folks that are not employed by the police department. And while the FOP doesn't condone any harassment of anybody for their personal opinion, and we've made that expression to people several times, hey, people are entitled to their own opinions, let's let them be. We can't control what people who have no part of our organization or who are not part of the MNPD, what they say or do. And if you're not an employee, it's not us protecting another from another. I think the basis of the entire lawsuit that she's referring to is the fact that somebody has a protected right of the First Amendment, and to say that, well, these people can't speak what they think, but this person can, wouldn't be fair anyways.
Were there officers who supported the Community Oversight Board, and did you feel like they were treated fairly by fellow officers? As
far as I know, there's one officer that supports it. I don't know of any other ones, and I don't want to single that individual out on television. I don't know of any unfair treatment from other officers to that individual officer.
And you wouldn't, certainly you wouldn't support that. I mean,
no,
you would say
not.
He has every right to his opinion.
Yeah, any officer is entitled to their own personal opinion when it comes to any kind of political engagement, and we're not going to shut that down.
All right. Let's go to Jake. Hello, Jake.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay. This is from Mr. Smallwood. You spoke about hiring and the additional cost to hire more officers. By all accounts, Nashville's growing about 80 to 100 people per day. I'm just wondering how the department is keeping up with the number of officers, keeping those numbers up, and how does that compare to the number of officers in years past?
That's a good question, Jake. You know, a few years back, I looked at the numbers for the police department, and we had grown over the past 10 or 15 years, don't quote me on that number, by about 200 officers. And in the last 7 to 8 years, we haven't seen the same level of growth. While we were budgeted for an additional 70 last year, I don't think we're going to attain that because there's going to be some issues with budget cuts, and they're probably going to satisfy those cuts with that number. And it's also a recruiting issue, but Certainly we need to focus on budgeting more people to keep up with the growth. As Jake mentioned, Nashville has exploded, and when you compare our city to other cities and the number of police officers that work within, it's not a comparable number.
Can we drill down into the numbers? I mean, how many officers were there 5 years ago, and how many officers are there now, and what sort of increase have we seen in the call volume? Do you have those numbers off the top of your head? I mean, is that something you track, and maybe you can be more general about it, but we've certainly seen enormous growth.
Yeah.
Have we seen enormous growth in the number of calls that are coming in?
Absolutely.
And what about in the size of the police force?
No. While we have seen some growth, we have not seen growth that is equitable to the number of calls and population growth that we've seen in Nashville. And a good number to compare to is the city of Memphis. We have surpassed them in population size, and we've always been larger than them in geographical area. They are budgeted for somewhere around 2,400 officers. We currently have around 1,440. So if that gives you kind of a picture of how short we are.
And what would be fully staffed? Are you fully staffed?
Right now, fully staffed for us would be 1,510.
Okay. And the issue there is that other issue where it's been hard to find people, qualified and willing candidates to go through the training and be a police officer.
Well, you know, you've got an issue in nationwide, but here in Nashville, where people are looking at this job and going, do I really want to put everything I have on the line? Do I want to risk my life and my family's life, or risk everything for my family for $43,000 a year at a starting salary? And a lot of people are saying, no, it's not worth the risk anymore, and they're turning to another profession or another department that pays better.
And what are some other cities our size paying? Where do we rank?
You know, it's funny you asked that. I've been posting on social media every day. A different city that may pay better or have a similar benefits package but pay a higher salary. When you look at cities like, you know, the ones that are compared all the time, Columbus, Chicago. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head of the ones that I've compared to. Denver. They all pay a significantly higher level of salary to their officers with a similar benefits package. And we're not meeting that standard.
Are you confident that that can change? Some of those cities are a little bit. Chicago's bigger, Denver's bigger, but are you confident that's going to change, or are you not confident that's going to change?
I can't say that given the last budget cycle that I have a whole lot of confidence that we're going to see a change in our pay plan or our benefits package for police officers to encourage new people to come and the experienced ones to stay.
All right, let's go to Brooklyn. Hello, Brooklyn? Brooklyn, are you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Great, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, so I have a couple of questions, so just bear with me. And going with the current number of police officers that we have today, in my recent education for myself, I found that we have less police officers today than we did in 2002. And within just the last 4 years, we've had 144,000 people move to Nashville. We also are one of the most decorated and highly respected police departments in the entire nation, yet we were ranked one of the top 5 worst cities to be a police officer in. And in my research, I feel that there's no support for police officers from the mayor all the way down. I think that they are incredibly overworked, and people nowadays think that they can go up to an officer and swear at them or be completely disrespectful, when here these guys are and ladies doing everything that they can to keep our city safe and running towards the gunfire and the fires and completely being disrespected, and I think grossly, from the mayor. And they're doing absolutely nothing to recruit new officers. They're losing seasoned veteran officers by the day, and they say they can't afford to give them a 3% raise, but they have to hire, let's see, we have 1,440 right now, and we need to have 1,500, so at least 500 new officers. How are they going to pay the new officers if they can actually get them to come work here and give the seasoned officers the raises that they deserve?
Well, Brooklyn, thank you. Now, are you a police officer? You've done a lot of research. Are you a police officer?
No, I'm not a police officer, but I'm a grad student, and there were things that happened about 10 years ago when I was early in my college education that made me want to look into the police department here in Nashville, and I'm doing my thesis on this department, and it is amazing to me that a department that, I mean, other departments in the continental United States travel to our city to learn how to handle terrorist activity and open shooters. We have the best police officers in the continental United States, and that's why other people come here to learn from them.
All right, well, let's talk about what you're saying. Well, I appreciate your call and what you're saying. Okay, she threw out several things. Top 5 worst cities to be a police officer. So
That's
she's quoting a study, and I didn't ask what study that was. She says she's a grad student. She had a lot of information there. Have you heard this? Top 5 worst cities to be a police officer?
Honestly, I haven't. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but I haven't seen that line. And certainly, if what was her name? Brooklyn. Brooklyn. If you want to share that information with me, feel free to reach out to the FOP and let us know where you got that information, because that's certainly something I'd be interested in seeing.
She paints a picture. And again, she said she's not a police officer, but she's done research that would indicate morale is not good. As president of the FOP, how is morale?
Morale is not good. That's an accurate depiction of our morale. We delivered a study that showed our morale was on a scale of 1 to 10, around 4.1, and this was before we found out that the promised COLA raises weren't going to be fulfilled and all the other things that you've seen. So I can only imagine what that number is now. But morale, certainly in the department for our officers, is at an all-time low.
And is there more tension in the city? I mean, obviously, the whole. What do we do about that? I feel like for a lot of years there was a sense that things were going well, and now there seems to be racial tension. There seems to be tension that is out there. How real is that, and what needs to be done about that?
Well, I think you know, from the community standpoint, there's going to need to be a lot more public support for the job that officers are doing. Right now they feel like they're under fire, and they feel like they're under fire from every direction possible, whether it be the city administration or the community. So some folks need to start standing up and saying we support our police officers. They're doing a good job. They're doing a hard job. And that recognition will go a long way, I think, to improve that morale.
All right, Brooklyn, thank you for that call. Randall Hall on Facebook. We're streaming this live on our Facebook page. And we have several comments, and I appreciate that. Randall Hall asks, how will the new oversight board affect how long officers will stay on the job? He says, will you see more requests for early retirement? So this is Randall Hall. That's his question on Facebook. What do you think of that?
Well, it's certainly a good question. There are a lot of unanswered questions about how this board is going to operate, how it's going to function, and I think a lot of people are kind of waiting to see how that's going to happen. Right now, we've kind of got an average of somewhere between 5 and 9 years of folks staying on the job, and a lot of people in that time range, if they're going to leave, that's when they go. And that's not just a local problem, that's a nationwide problem, because there's a lot of stressors in the job that aren't very well supported or cannot be very well supported. So you're seeing that, and now we're adding in something like this. If it becomes a hostile thing, I think, yeah, certainly you're going to see a lot of people turn it in and say, I'm going to find something else to do. At
this point, just it passing is not enough to make some of those officers throw in the towel or take early retirement. You're saying, no, it sounds like you're saying they want to see how it's implemented, they want to see, you know, what happens next.
Yeah, because and one of our big points of contention before it passed was there's no rules, there's no regulations, there's nothing drafted to show how this is going to be put into place. So it's a wide open spectrum of what could actually happen. And until we see that, I think it's hard for us to say how that's going to work out.
All right. TJ Pollock is asking about patrol cars. Then he says, Harvard said we need to stay out of high crime areas and lay off non-moving violations. All right, let's talk about patrol cars. You mentioned something about patrol cars. Mm-hmm. What kind of condition are they in? Are they getting repaired quickly enough? What's the situation that you're seeing?
No, you know, we don't have enough cars for officers as it is, and I know the police department's doing the best they can to get more cars, but it all comes down to funding. We've got officers sometimes riding 2, 3, and 4 in a car just to handle calls for service because we don't have enough cars, or at times they'll be sitting in the precinct waiting for hours on end for somebody to bring their car back so that they can get in a car and go do some work for the city. Cars that go to the garage, they have a tendency to go for quite a while and don't get returned in a timely fashion. Whatever the reason is for that, it may be a staffing issue or something in the garage, as well as you know, just not enough people to get the work done. But we need more cars, there's no doubt about it. The lack thereof is creating a big inefficiency for the police department.
All right, we have to take a break. If you want to call in, there are a couple lines open, and I promise I'm going to take your calls. So call in and we'll take your calls, or you can comment here on Facebook. I'm reading appropriate comments here on Facebook, so you can comment as we stream this live on our Facebook page. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.